Hello, Tom. Thank you for being here today. I have a second question from Richard. First, he states, preceding the discovery of information theory by Claude Shannon was the important and closely related discovery of cybernetics by MIT mathematician Norbert Wiener. Cybernetics has been instrumental in modern technology, but over and above this, it explains the behavior of all living organisms as well, all the way down to bacteria. It describes goal-seeking behavior whereby using positive and negative feedback, a living organism or machine navigates, steers, or seeks to achieve certain goals. The cybernetic force, sometimes described as telesis, leads to the core principle of biology known as homeostasis. Tom, you have discussed with myself and your talk about chaos theory back in 2016 about hunting servomechanisms, whereby these devices constantly seek their targets like cruise control in a car, like an air conditioner with a specific set point, or like a heat-seeking missile hunting to strike its target. This servo mechanism is basically cybernetics in a nutshell, and when I listen to you describe the LCS, I cannot help but attempt to make an appropriate connection. My question is this. You have described the LCS as a system that is constantly attempting to decrease its entropy. In light of the above-mentioned information pertaining to cybernetics, could we see the LCS as behaving like that of a large hunting servomechanism with the subordinate goal of decreasing entropy? In other words, in its moment-to-moment calculation of and rendering of our computed digital reality, is it constantly attempting to decrease entropy by, in some microscopic way, giving negative feedback to certain phenomena, positive feedback to others, based on some set of rules that aim to decrease the entropy of the system as a whole? Whether it be the big cheese employing troubleshooters from time to time, or every single thing, really, all to constantly lead the system to lower entropy, very much in a goal-seeking, cybernetic type of way. I cannot help but see this as a cybernetic process, or that of a macroscopic hunting servo mechanism. What would your comment be on this, Tom?
That's not a bad metaphor. I think all life processes tend to have those traits. Like you said, homeostasis is kind of the end point of all of that in a very complex system, like our body or a dog's body for that matter. But it's a little different. The things that you mentioned as examples, like a heat-seeking missile or other things that are designed to search for a particular goal, like a radar, following a target, a radar tracking an airplane. That's another servo system. That is a mechanical system. That's a system that abides by the rule set. The rule set, its generation, the way it works is, it sets up things that as this gets smaller, you move to keep it bigger. Or if it gets bigger, you move to keep it smaller, so that you're always moving toward a goal. But it's a mechanical thing. Trying to apply this to the larger consciousness system really is a fairly good metaphor, because the system is goal-oriented. It has a goal, and that goal is to lower entropy. And it does that in multiple ways. And one way is us, pieces of that system, are playing in a virtual reality that's constantly giving us choices. And by those choices, we can raise our entropy or lower our entropy. And we're there to learn how to lower our entropy. And another way to look at this is called evolution. Evolution is a similar sort of thing. the output, the way things are now, gets fed into the input, which is, in physical evolution, it's survival and procreation. Those are the criteria. And the environment and all of that gets figured into it, and then things evolve. So they're continually evolving, but they're evolving really toward lower entropy. They're evolving to be more successful at surviving, more successful at procreation, more successful at finding better ways to survive and procreate. So it's always a system trying to find a better solution, a better way. And we call that evolution. And when it's all mechanical, when it's all just the rule set, then the way scientists think it happens is that there are random mutations. And if these mutations are positive, helps them toward their goal, then they persist. If the mutations hinder them from reaching their goal, then they go away. And thus evolution is spurred by random processes. Well, that function is true, but that's not necessarily the main function driving things. That is the main function, say, driving plants. Plants evolve as well. But when it comes to people and animals, even insects, they have intent, and intent modifies future probability. So you have another component in there besides random mutations. You have intentional mutations. That is, things change because an intention is made. So a particular moth that's all white gets on a boat in Australia or someplace like that. I don't remember the story now. And it goes to England. And the moth, or several of these moths, get out into England and they breed. And within some very short period of time, like 20, 30 years, they've turned into black moths. And how did they do that? Well, it wasn't because they just tried every color until they finally got to all black, and that worked, so it stayed. To try every possible color and pattern would have taken them millennia. It would have been hundreds of thousands, millions of years before that would have taken place just by random mutations. But these moths were conscious. They had awareness at their own level, and they had an intent not to be eaten, to blend in with the surrounding area. So in just a very, very short period of time, when it comes to evolution, they evolved into black moths. So there's multiple such examples of evolution kind of speeding up. At times there was a big, what they call Cambrian explosion, where it seemed like evolution was on steroids. It was moving very quickly. But anyhow, the point I'm making is that when you add consciousness to the mix, then you get something a little different than the mechanical searching for a goal. Its goal of this radar is to follow the airplane, to always point at the airplane and send its energy out to the airplane and then receive the energy that bounces back. And it can't do that if it's not pointing at the airplane, but the airplane's moving. So it has to seek it. It has to search for it. It has to follow it. That's its goal. It's a seeking servo. Consciousness comes in, and intent becomes part of that problem. So yes, now you have the larger consciousness system. It's conscious. It's aware. It's not just a big machine that has a goal of lowering entropy. It's an aware system, a conscious system. So it consciously decides to split off pieces of itself, virtual machines, I call individuated units of consciousness, to evolve in an environment that is very challenging to evolve in. And it therefore has to make that environment in a virtual reality. So it does act like a servo in the sense that it has a goal, and it's continually growing. It's continually working its way toward meeting that goal more completely. So its goal will be when all of the individuated units of consciousness have all become love. They've all become caring, and they all work together and produce probably what we might call a single mind or a collective consciousness that is probably has skills and powers and abilities beyond what we can comprehend right now. So that goal, and then when that goal's met, maybe it will combine other virtual realities and have them come together to cooperate and care for each other. So I don't see an end in sight for that. It's a goal that one's always searching toward, and at the pace that people grow up and change themselves, it's going to take a very long time before we get there, because people, these IUOCs, these pieces of consciousness don't change very quickly. And it can't be an intellectual change. It has to be a change at their core internally. They have to change who they are. And that's a very slow process. So I see this searching, if you will, of the larger conscious system for lower states of entropy. You know, it does sort of look like your cybernetic proclivities, your cybernetic definition there, because it is always searching and it is always trying to get closer to its goal. But it does that not just through random events happening, but there is a lot of randomness in the system. You know, what you have 9 billion people all interacting with each other. There's no way to that's not programmed. Those individuals all have free will. So what they do and how they do it gets created as they make those choices. So there's lots of randomness, lots of possibilities. And only one thing happens out of all those possibilities, and we call that history. That's all the choices go together. So there is that going on at the what do we say, the level of just probability, statistics. We may call that randomness. Sort of like, one of the names I give it is that it's like Brownian motion. Brownian motion is where all the molecules just randomly bang into each other in order to spread those molecules evenly throughout a container. Well, this is like social Brownian motion. People all run into each other and interact with each other in ways to cause something to happen, to build something bigger. So that's going on at kind of the random level. But besides that, there's intent. And this intent can move mountains, can change things. If we can change some intents by making the concepts of MBT mainstream, to where there's hundreds of millions of people who think that they're here to become love. If we get that, then that will change intentions. And when you change intentions, you start moving toward that goal much more quickly. It's an intentional change. It's not just a random things bumping into each other until they form something better than they had before, and then that persists and worse things go away. That's making those goals, happen. It's creating motion toward the goals intentionally. So that just adds a different variable to the cybernetics concept, is intention. So given that consciousness has intention, then yes, I would agree that it is a goal-seeking entity, but because it has consciousness, it's a little more than just random events eventually building up to evolution that continually progresses over time. Because evolution has lots of things pushing it. And the environment's one of those. If the sun disappears for a month, well, that will change everything. It's not just the choices that people make. It's just things that happen. So it is like a big goal-seeking entity, but it's more than that. It's full of intention, from the intentions of each of the individuated units in consciousness and the intention of the whole, that consciousness that represents the whole, what we call the larger consciousness system, is a conscious system.
So
It's
this method
system.
appears cybernetic-like, those servo mechanism type functions, but for the consciousness factor, it's a physicalist thing, and it has the appearance of operating that way, but is leaving out consciousness, which is the key factor in what drives things. Would that be?
I think that's a good summary.
Okay. Thank you. All right. That was very interesting, and a very interesting metaphor to present in that sense. So thank you, Richard. Thanks, Tom. Would you like to see a better world? Get a better perspective. Balance your intellect with intuition and explore your true nature with the Exploring Consciousness and Everything Paranormal program with Thomas Campbell. In this program, you will have the benefit of Tom's vast experience and learn to access point consciousness, communicate with the larger consciousness system, remote view, use your natural ability to heal with intent, and explore reality in the out-of-body state. His famous binaural beats are included. Details are in the description below. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you do, then you should consider being a Patreon member, because Patreon members get early access to our special content. You will also be able to get your questions answered by me in special Q&A sessions, and most importantly, your contribution as a patron member will enable us to produce the content that you're looking for. So thank you.